Thank you, Professor Hukum Singh, Dr. Mamta Sarma, for inviting me to this beautiful place representing my country, my university. Here, today, in this session, I'm briefly going to talk on the human-wildlife negative interaction in the Nepal Himalaya and how is it challenging the sustainable development. So my talk will be on three basic aspects today. What is the status of human-wildlife conflict in Nepal, and how human activities, anthropogenic activities, are escalating those conflicts, and what interventions or what management strategies are to be done for the management of those conflicts. So my first talk, my first focus will be on what is the status of the conflict in Nepal. So the human-wildlife negative interaction, which we commonly call human-wildlife conflict, though some authorities, some scientists do not prefer the word conflict, while others, they have been using it. This negative interaction, it is not a new one. It dates back to the prehistoric era when human civilization started, when hunting-gathering stage of our civilization was there. This conflict started since then. But the severity and the complexity of this conflict has increased in the very recent past. And in the resource-limited areas like Himalayas, where resources are limited but diversity is high, and in such resource-limited conditions, there is competition between the people and wildlife, and that competition is leading into the conflict. One causing the harm to other. Human harming the animals, and animals causing some harms to human. And in addition to that, current global warming or the climate change, which is one of the most important threat that human civilization is facing, that is affecting the Himalayan region severely. And there are multiple studies which have already been published that the effect of global warming, the rise in temperature, the rate of rise in temperature of the Himalayan region is much higher than the global average. And that is why that global warming has changed the phenology, it has changed the behavior of animals as well as the behavior of humans, and there is change in seasonality and everything. And this climate change has also contributed in the conflict. So before entering into the Nepal itself, if we look at the Trans-Himalayan region or the Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region in a broad aspect, we can see the conflict is localized in certain areas. In certain areas, the conflict is very high, while in some other areas, still. Some areas are understudied, while other areas might be the conflict is not so high yet. And the recent trend, if we see, since 2009-10, the research publications are getting higher. It also signifies that conflict is increasing, that's why research is being done. And focusing into Nepal, I don't know how many of you have visited. If you have visited Nepal, you might have idea about the geography. In the central Himalayan region, not to UP and Bihar of India, Nepal lies, and we have three major physiographic zones. Lowland of Nepal is flat area like UP and Bihar, and this is our grain storage, from where most of the grains are produced. And the middle light green colored area, it is our mid-hills. And mid-hill area, it is not so densely populated, but it has good forest. Mixed forest is there. And above that, higher Himalayan region, very sparsely populated, very few people are living, and, but the area is big. And regarding the protected areas, we have many protected areas which cover almost 23% of the total land surface of Nepal. And those protected areas, they are either in the lowland or in the higher elevation. Those green colored areas are protected areas. Mid hills are rarely covered by the protected areas. And so human wildlife conflict is distributed almost everywhere, starting from the very northeast to the northwest and southeast in the Mechinagar area, Indian border of Nepal and India, to the far west border of Nepal with Uttarakhand. So everywhere, almost everywhere, the human wildlife conflict cases have been reported from, but the conflict causing animals and the pattern of conflict is different. In the lowland Tarai area, conflict causing animals are elephants, rhinos, and in the mid hills we have leopards, black bear causing the conflict, and in the higher elevation we have snow leopard. So the pattern of conflict and the conflict causing animals are also different. And if we look at the temporal pattern of conflict, how the conflict is changing. In the first figure in our recent publication, you can see the blue color represents the loss of wildlife, death or killing of wildlife, and the red lines represent the loss of human. Starting from 2000 to 2020. So both human loss and wildlife loss is increasing, and human loss and wildlife loss. In wildlife, mainly the green line represents the leopards. Mostly retaliatory killing of leopard is happening, and in addition to that, other animals also, they are losing their life. And because of the wildlife, human population or human life is being lost, and the major consistently high loss is because of leopard. The green color represents the loss of human because of leopard. And in the recent, after 2014, 2015, the red line has gone much higher. It is because of single elephant, one elephant, causing the death of more than 20 people, which was just entered into its reproductive period, young elephant, male, and then it killed few people. 1 or 2 people were injured, and then government took some intervention. Forest department, what the forest department did is, forest department captured that elephant and caught its tusk. And the animal got much anger after that, and after that it killed dozens of other people. That's why the red line is there going much higher because of elephant. Otherwise, human-elephant conflict was not so high in Nepal. But consistently high human population loss was due to leopard, and mostly on the mid-hill area of Nepal. And looking at the causes, what is driving the conflict in Nepal, the study has confirmed that major cause of human-wildlife conflict is human activities, anthropogenic activities, and anthropogenic activities causing the land use, land cover change. That is confirmed to be the major cause of human-wildlife conflict. Besides that, food shortage, resource shortage, and then proximity to forest or protected areas, and the next one, another cause is retaliatory killing. Wildlife causing some damage, causing crop loss or attacking human, and humans in response killing those animals. And because of these activities, human-wildlife conflict is increasing, and it has resulted into the risk of food insecurity. People like rhesus monkeys, elephant, rhinos are damaging the crops, and there is risk of food insecurity. And even school children, during the crop harvesting period or when cropping season is there, they are not going to school, they are not attending the school, instead they are guarding their crop field. So dropout rate is increasing. School dropout, children drop out from school, and human injury and death. These are the effects seen on human. Besides that, animals are losing their life by the retaliatory killings, and there are some threatened animals which are already threatened, and when such threatened animals are involved in conflict, there is chances of their extinction, risk of extinction. And these studies shows that almost everywhere, mostly in the central Nepal, this is the possibility of crop raiding, prediction, and this is hotspot mapping for the human-wildlife conflict, likelihood that animals are killed there, or wildlife loss in those areas, hotspots for wildlife loss. So this is the scenario of human-wildlife conflict in Nepal, and how anthropogenic activities are leading those is human population increased, human demand increased, and then humans started to use the natural resources recklessly. And that has caused the loss of habitat for the wildlife. And when their natural habitat has been lost, wildlife have started entering into the human settlement, and conflict has increased. And this has been confirmed by another study in which how is land use, land cover change happening in Nepal, and it confirmed that the settlement area, build-up area, those red dots are increasing, and even forest is increasing in the mid-hills, but in some areas there is deforestation also. And forest is increasing in the mid-hills, some wildlife population like monkey population is increasing, leopard population is increasing, and so is conflict increasing. Because people are migrating from mid-hills or the rural areas towards urban areas, and agricultural fields are turning into barren land, and those barren land after 5-10 years are turning into forest, and wildlife are approaching close to the human settlement, and conflict is increasing. Besides this, another cause is the illegal hunting. We have only one hunting reserve, and only one species that is allowed to be hunted is legally hunted is blue sheep. Otherwise, there is no legal hunting provision in Nepal. But illegal hunting has been reported for many animals, like illegal hunting of rhinoceros, hunting of pangolins, and its poaching towards the northern border of Nepal towards China, and hunting of red panda for its skin and export. So such illegal hunting is also causing the conflict, a loss of wildlife population, like only because of poaching, the Chinese pangolin has been turned into critically endangered species. The main cause is population decline due to poaching. So this is another cause. The third cause for increase in human-wildlife conflict is infrastructure development. Infrastructure is human need. We need to develop the infrastructure, but when those infrastructure are not well planned, that has resulted into the increase in conflict. In the first photograph you can see, this is the road just to reach into a hydropower project. So this is just an access road reaching to the hydropower project, and then the entire hill area has been, that used to be the wildlife habitat, it has been changed into the road. So wildlife have lost their habitat, and they will go towards human settlement. In the second study, this is the ongoing project. It is a dam-based hydroelectric project which is estimating to produce 2,500 megawatt of electricity, blocking the river, creating a dam, and producing hydroelectricity from that. And that dam, we studied on that dam, and there is one species of monkey, which is Assam monkey, Assamese monkey, we call it Macaca assamensis. And this species, in IUCN Red List, it is listed as near threatened. And in Nepal, we have very small population of this species, and we have protected it. It is legally protected by the National Park and Wildlife Conservation Act of Nepal. Population is very small, but because of this project, what could be the effect on the habitat of this species we studied. We surveyed the river basin, and we found there are 4 distinct groups of these macaques, and we observed these macaques for the whole year to determine what is their habitat range. Where do they go? In all seasons we studied, and we plotted those points, GPS points, and we prepared in a map, and we overlaid that with the proposed dam. The blue line represents the area which will be covered by the water when this project is on operation. So we found that out of 4 troops we observed, the upper yellow one, pink, this dark yellow and red, 3 troops will lose their habitat completely, and 1 troop will lose more than 70% of its habitat. So when their current habitat will be inundated, when it will be covered with water, animals will be forced to move towards where? Human settlement. Either they need to die or they should go towards human settlement. And that will increase, either they become extinct or that will increase the human-wildlife conflict. In the same way, another conflict-causing factor or the reason for loss of wildlife is power line collision. Hydroelectricity is our main resource. It is the main source of energy for mountainous country like Nepal. And this type of power lines or transmission lines, these transmission lines are causing the collision of birds and bats plus electrocution of these animals, and then we are losing even critically endangered white-rumped vultures have also been died because of the collision in these electric wires. And this is important because many migratory birds, you can see, I think in the winter season, you might see many migratory birds coming into the lakes of Rajasthan also here. They all come from Kazakhstan, Serbia, and other areas through Himalaya. This is the intercontinental migratory species, and these migratory species, they pass through Himalaya, and they have certain route of passing. And when such transmission lines are in the migratory routes, there is possibility of collision. Windmills, transmission lines, these are causing the collision and death of wildlife. But these wires, electric wires, they don't have negative effect only. In urban areas of Kathmandu, monkeys are using these electric cables for crossing the road. There is positive aspect also. They are using. And in one of the study, we found that females and young ones use these wires more frequently than the males. Because males are heavier and they are not scared of crossing the road. But females and young ones, they are scared of crossing the road and they are using the wire to go across the road. And we found significant difference, sex-based difference, age-based difference on the use of these cables. But currently, what is happening in Kathmandu is all these cables are being underground. Cables are making underground. So what will be the effect? Because these animals are adapted in the urban area. These monkeys, they are adapted using these wires while crossing the road. But when those wires are not there, what will be the effect? We don't know. So we need to assess these, and there is one research opportunity for us, but maybe the animals will be stressed more and conflict will increase. And here I am sharing with you one tragic event, not only one. In the last 3 years, we recorded 6 these tragic events. There, in the hilly areas of Nepal, these artificial ponds are constructed for harvesting the rainwater and using that water during the dry season for irrigation. They are not so big, just 5-6 meter long, and depth is about 7-8 feet, not more than that. And in these cases, you can see many monkeys, they lost their life drowning into this water. A small pond, but monkeys are drowned. I saw rhesus monkeys are here in Rajasthan. You might have seen them, they are very good swimmers. We have seen them crossing rivers also, big rivers also. And these animals, they can swim when the ponds are full. When the ponds are filled with water, they can swim, they can come out. And when the water is used, when the pond is half filled, they still go for swimming, but they couldn't come out. The reason, you can see the wall. Wall is cemented, fully cemented. There is nothing to anchor. And when the animal is swimming, the thrust is not enough to jump. So animals tried coming out, tried, all energy lost, fatigue, and ultimately drowning. 1 or 2 animals drowned or died in water, others went for rescuing. And an entire group died. In one event, we found 33 monkeys dead. The least size, out of those 6 events, the least size was of 9 monkeys. So there is such tragic event because of small construction. If there was a small rope hanging, or if there was just a single bamboo in the pond, monkeys would have come out easily. There was nothing, and they died as they couldn't come out. And at the beginning, even newspapers, when the first event happened, first accident happened, newspapers reported it is because of poisoning. People poisoned the monkeys and killed. There was big rumor, but locals said no, no one has poisoned them. And the similar event happened in another place. And after that, in one of the events, luckily we found some video recorded by the local boy. And we analyzed that video, and we related that with the behavior of the monkey, and we found that it is because they went for swimming, but they couldn't come out. So human construction, very small construction, can also cause such a huge loss. And the next is roadkill, which you all are familiar with, and highways are there, and these highways are crossed by, actually we have made the highways cutting the forest. The highways pass through the forest, and animals, while they cross, then there is chances of wildlife vehicle collision and loss of wildlife. There are many such incidences, many wildlife lose their life, and which animals are more susceptible? It depends on their age, sex, dispersal ability, how fast they can move, and what is the traffic pressure on that highway, what is the vehicle velocity. These different factors affect. And the next thing, another factor causing the human-wildlife conflict, because of human, there is climate change, there is global warming, there is change in phenology, there is decrease in food availability to the carnivores like snow leopard, and then snow leopard is attacking on wildlife. So far, we haven't got, in Nepal, we haven't got snow leopard attacking on human, but the livestock have been depredated very frequently, and that has caused the conflict. So what should be our management intervention to minimize those? I haven't listed, or I'm not going to discuss all here. Some of the major management interventions which we have started, which we have recommended for the policymakers, I will be discussing here. So in the previous days, in last 2 days, many speakers already discussed about sustainable development goals defined by UN, so I'm not going to talk about these. Wildlife is one of our renewable natural resource, and we are losing the resource because of our own activities. So for the ecological, economic, legal provision, social region, cultural, emotional, as well as ethical region, we should protect these wildlife. So for that, the major cause is the loss of habitat. Excessive use of natural resources by human is causing wildlife habitat loss. That's why we need to reduce our dependence to natural resources. Instead of firewood, we should go towards electricity, and instead of petrol, diesel, that is carbon emitting vehicles, we should go towards the electric vehicles. And let me tell you, in Nepal, if we buy one petrol or diesel car, we need to pay 300% tax. A car that costs 10 lakh in India, that costs more than 35 lakhs in Kathmandu. But if we are buying electric vehicle, we just need to pay 23% tax. 13% is VAT, 10% is custom tax, custom duty. So just 23%. That's why in Kathmandu these days, I can see many Tata Nexon EVs than petrol and diesel. So there is paradigm shift from petrol diesel engine towards electric vehicle, and not now, but in the long run, I think this type of shift will help in reducing global warming and human dependence towards natural resources, and will help in reducing the conflict. Besides this, in the trans-Himalayan migratory route of birds, we have recommended the government not to install windmills and not think about the alternatives for transmission line, not taking them across, take the transmission line along so that it can reduce the human, collision of birds with those transmission lines. And next, to minimize the road kills, we need to improve our road conditions, we need to use signs on the roads, and we need to construct tunnels. I studied one paper, success story for giant panda conservation in China. Chinese government constructed only tunnels in the habitat of giant panda. They didn't make the surface roads there, and it saved the habitat. So that could also be possible. That could be necessary for Himalayan country like Nepal, because tunnel, I think ultimately it will be cheaper in the long-term use rather than making bent road over the hilly areas. And artificial wildlife crossing areas can also minimize proper sign. And next is, I have seen in many states of India also, these canopy bridges, connecting two trees on either side of the road using the ropes or threads or artificial bridge, which we call canopy bridges. I have seen these used in Assam for gibbons, in Odisha, and even Telangana. I have seen some papers in which the use of canopy bridges have been recommended. And in Nepal also, in the east-west highway, we have installed many such canopy bridges, and study has reported it has been used most extensively by arboreal animals like Hanuman langur, rhesus monkeys, and even some rodents also we have recorded using those canopy bridges. It will reduce the collision. Besides, government has started, instead of lethal ways like using firecrackers, drums, or even guns to chase elephants, government has, at many places, government has installed electric fencing for elephant, and we can use ultrasonic repellent. We have recommended the farmers to use it. And this story is successful, using honey bees to repel elephants. This is successful in Africa. In Kenya, it has been successful. I have studied some papers. But for Asian elephant, whether it is successful or not, it is still not proven. There was one study from Thailand for Asian elephant. They used one species of honeybee, Apis mellifera, and they said that the success rate was 50% only. So they didn't recommend it. So might be, instead of Apis mellifera, if we choose other species of honeybee. So in Kenya, how is it successful is on the fence, at every 6 meters, they are keeping a beehive. And when elephants come, disturb, honeybees go, and then the honeybees attack close to the ear and the trunk of elephant, and the elephant runs away. So this has been successful in Kenya, but this is not proven yet its effectiveness is not tested. It is not proven for Asian elephant. So it could be one alternative. So we might need to think about it. So without taking much time here, now I would like to conclude. Regarding the status of human-wildlife conflict, my many slides suggest that the conflict is increasing. Human-wildlife conflict is increasing in the foothills of Himalaya, And the major driver for the human-wildlife conflict is human activities itself rather than the animals. And for the sustainable management of wildlife, that is essential. Sustainable management of wildlife is essential to fulfill the human demand or human requirements for the future. And for that, we need to think wisely so that only we can create harmonious environment between the human and wildlife. So I conclude with these three statements. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your time.
Professor Lakshman, for a very informative and nice lecture, and which is very relevant to this conference also. Now, something I was very much, this was the news for me, that the monkey, they were dying because of the drowning.
Yes.
But that can be solved by putting some stair, or as you told you, that
yes.
some bamboo or like that,
Yes.
that can prevent.
Yes.
Yes, really. So
Just a
that,
piece of bamboo is enough to...
only one bamboo is enough.
Yeah, that is enough.
That's good.
They can,
So he has discussed the changes took place in the behavior of the wildlife, and because of due to the deforestation, like and other many factors like construction, increase in the temperature, etc. Now in India also, the same is because it is at the foothill of the India also. That is due to the construction of many hydro power stations,
yeah.
particularly in the state of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Okay? Construction of road and construction of numerous buildings that are resulting in the depletion of the forest area. So what will happen when the forest area will be depleted? Where the inhabitant of that forest will go? Very simple case. They will come to our colonies.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So due to the rise in the particularly human population also, and that caused the depletion in the herbivorous animal also. Herbivorous animal, hiran वगैरह, ये हमारे जब forest नहीं है तो वो भी नहीं है. Then what will happen? The carnivorous animals, they will come, they need the food. They will visit the human inhabited and try and feed on the hunt on the animals, domestic animal, including human being, because they are the easy prey, and they convert into we call them then as a man-eaters.
Yeah.
Man-eaters, no?
Yeah.
And you must have heard the name of Jim Corbett. Okay, he has written many articles and books on this problem also, in the conflict between the human population and the wildlife. Now I know that in the foothill, Tarai area of the Himachal Pradesh and the Uttarakhand, it was very full of very, very dense forest, that area. Now during the partition of the country, the refugees, they had come, that area was allotted to them, mostly the sick person. So they naturally need something to live, so the forest will be cleared for the agriculture purposes. And that is a very good area. Of course, agriculture-wise is also very fertile area. So what happened to animal inhabiting that area? So many animals, they become the man-eaters. They start coming in the human inhibition like that, and the conflict was there, of course. Now, the human activities is, that you can discuss many things here. Recently, you have heard it was news that because of the construction of the particularly hydropower station, you must have the Joshimath का नाम सुना ना आपने? क्या होगा वहाँ पे? ऐसे बहुत जगह हो रहा है. तो ये हमको सोचना पड़ेगा, इस चीज़ के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा सोचना पड़ेगा. Wildlife animals are as important as we are.
Yeah.
Universe may record the status of we are all animals. We are also animals. Okay? We think that we are very much evolved mentally, but basically by nature nature has caused animals. One variety of animal, primates and Homo sapiens and sapiens like that. So we have to think about this also. So really very interesting and informative lecture given by Professor Lakshman here. And the conditions of Nepal and India, they are exactly the same. There's no difference. You can discuss Nepal or discuss the India also.
Yeah.
Okay, so any question, please? It was very interesting subject. राजस्थान में भी हो रहा है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. राजस्थान के उसमें आप देखिए.
2017 की बात बताता हूँ. 2 दिन के लिए मैं इस्कॉन मंदिर काठमांडू में गया था. तो पूरे कैंपस के अंदर फेंसिंग लगी हुई थी, क्योंकि वहाँ पर मंकी बहुत थे, बहुत ज़्यादा मंकी थे. वो पूरी को फेंसिंग से डेढ़ के, जिससे कि मंकी उनको डिस्टर्ब नहीं करे टेम्पल को. क्वेश्चन ये कि जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है मैन, वाइल्ड लाइफ और क्लाइमेट चेंज का, वो बड़ा क्रिटिकल इशू है. वो नेचर को भी आज किस तरह से क्लाइमेट चेंज एकदम चेंजिंग हो जाता है, हैबिटेशन चेंज हो रही है, उसका खान पीन चेंज होगा, ह्यूमन बीइंग का खान पीन चेंज हो रहा है, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो अटैक कर रहा है. मैं भी 2 दिन रह के आया था, गोरखपुर से गए थे, बस के अंदर गए थे, 2 दिन रहा था, देखा होगा कि फिर वापस आ गए थे. वो 2017 की बात बता रहा हूँ.
एक मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि you suggested the electric wiring, so it may be dangerous also for the other animals.
No, Professor. That fencing is, we don't use alternating current. We use direct current for that.
Okay.
So it gives a minor shock, but it doesn't cause electrocution. Yeah, it is direct current, DC, not AC.
नहीं होता उससे.
Yeah.
That's good thing.
We use solar panels and we use direct current, not the alternating current.
Okay. Nowadays, the government is constructing many underpass, like as you showed. In India also, they are preparing like underpass, overpass, like that. But the animal they have to be trained to use those passes. कैसे मालूम पड़ेगा कि हमको यहाँ से क्रॉस करना है? आदमी को नहीं मालूम कि हमें सड़क कहाँ से, जेब्रा क्रॉसिंग से क्रॉस करनी है या कहीं से करनी है.
No, for that also, we can construct barrier on the road, and at certain places only we leave it. So this is called wildlife channeling.
Yeah.
Construct the barrier on the road, animals moves along the barrier, and then when there is no barrier, only then animal crosses.
So within a due course of time, they will be trained to cross the highways. Okay, once again, thank you so much, Professor Lakshman, for a very nice presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor. I am so grateful that I could find you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, his father, Professor Bhatnagar, was the founder of my department in Tribhuvan University. So every day, Dr. Mamta owes Professor Bhatnagar. I also do it. I respect you, Professor.
Thanks a lot, sir.
So I would like to extend thanks to the keynote speaker and the chairperson for such a lovely and the wonderful session. And yes, Dr. Khanel, he has been my guide, he has been my teacher, and I call him my academic father. Whatever I'm doing, just because of him, he only taught me toxicology. So with this, we move to our next session. Our next keynote speaker is the most lovely and most popular speaker, Professor Raj Nannamare, Associate Professor, Department of Human Health and Sciences, Faculty of Nursing, McEwan University, Edmonton, Canada. The session would be chaired by another popular person, Dr. Prem Adish Lekhi, Director, Dr. SSIM Ingo, Perak, Malaysia. Sir, आपका स्वागत, आपका अभिनंदन stage पर.
You can move it left or this way. Yes. Okay. You can.
Sir, आइए.
इस पर है प्रेजेंटेशन मोड पर.
हाँ.
ओके. वंडरफुल. और माइक्रोफोन.
हाँ.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for such a flattering introductions. Good morning and namaskar, everyone. I am incredibly indebted honored and humbled to be the part of this most exciting conference again. It is my pleasure to see you all, those who were present last year in the symposium, and it's also nice meeting you, the new keynote speaker and the new attendants. My name is Raj Narnavre, and I was born and brought up in India. And whenever I have a chance to come back to the India, and whatever capacity I can contribute, it has always been my pleasure. So everyone here, those who have born and brought up, educated and move on to the abroad for either higher studies or for their profession, folks, this is our payback time to the country and the nation that we actually once belongs to. And it is so nice that every one of us, whatever circumstances we are, we come down together and basically share our expertise. And so I am so grateful to RRC, who has managed to got all of us under one umbrella. It's like a family. And even though we are from the various diverse background, but we have one common objective, is to come down here in India and contribute to the field of your study or the field of your, what you call, the research area, right? And so I don't want to be the first one to claim, but RRC has been very phenomenal to bring us all together. And so, the Dr. Sharma and the Professor Hukam Singh ji are the backbone of this initiative, right? So what we have done for last 2 days, and even for today, that we share the expertise. One common conclusion is that there is the human interactions with the nature, which is actually, going to be very disastrous unless we take some concrete steps, right? Now, the purpose of this conference is not only to contribute to, but also prepare the next generation so that they can actually do the informed decision about their living and also about their surrounding everywhere, right? So as I mentioned earlier, I'm not ecologist. I am not what you actually call the toxicologist for sure, and I'm also not the economist. I am simple researcher and the educationist. My area is not actually the teaching research. I am neuroscientist by profession. I spend a lot of time working on the human brain, looking at how much and what we eat is controlled by the brain by producing the neuropeptide. I also looked at how brain communicate with the immune system when you are, have a disease, infection, or you are highly stressed out. So I did that one for 15 years. I published lots of work. But last 5 to 6 years, since I started teaching the human anatomy and the physiology, I was simply a simple zoologist and biologist from India. But did you see, when you step out of the country and go to the abroad, you have an opportunity to change your area. So now I started teaching human anatomy, physiology, and the pathophysiology to the Bachelor of Science in Nursing and the psychiatric nursing student. And then I involve in the teaching research, right? So before I begin to my presentation this morning, again, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Professor Hukam Singh ji and also Dr. Mamta Sharma ji for having you and me. So before I start my presentation, I want to actually talk something else also. So number one, there are 2 questions I want to ask you. How many of you teach a course that is a prerequisite to the subsequent courses in your program of the study? Meaning that, do you teach, or the knowledge or the subject you teach, how much knowledge of the subject you actually introduce in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year of your program of the study? Please raise the hand. Anyone? You teach the subject and you carry on that knowledge to the rest of your degree program. Okay. Second one, what is the common thing in all of us? Whether you are professor, you are educationist, you are researchers, or you are chair or the dean of your department. What is the most common thing in all of us? And that is the teaching. right? So teaching is actually passion, and we have developed for it, right? But here's the thing, guys, the teaching has evolved substantially, at least in the part of the world I came from. I am not sure in India how the teaching is done, and I would love to go in the classroom and see how the teaching has performed in India, right? Another thing, there's a blowing wind that the teaching actually moving from the passive teaching and learning to the active learning teaching. And this is where I'm going to actually show you some of the things, right? Now, another thing, some of the strategy I'm going to introduce, you might have to design your curriculum if you are teaching at your institution, and that curriculum include the following thing. Number one, your curriculum should favor the student engagement. Number one. Number two, it also improve the knowledge of your subject area. Your curriculum design should also aim to actually, there's a more interaction between you and your student. And number three, you also should make your student socially interactive, critical thinking, and the independent thinker. And above all, you should design your curriculum or syllabus in such a way that the knowledge you introduce to your student, they should be able to remember rest of their life. So I teach the nursing student, and they go to take the patient care. And inadequate knowledge of the human body can lead to the medical error and quite often compromise the patient safety, right? And so this morning, what I really wanted to do is to talk about the active and passive. So if you look at this one, your curriculum, if you are a professor and you are actively involved in teaching, your actually curriculum should include the active learning. What do you mean by the active learning? The learning which you engage your student in the classroom, and number two, you also make your student what you actually call the accountable for learning, right? Now, those are some of the most important advantage. So any professor, any one of you who engage your student in the active learning, look at there, they actually perform better. Their academic performance is much, much better than the passive learning. So most of you probably just go walk in a classroom, teach, give the exam, post their grades, and you're done. But the active learning actually have proven the student perform very well. They retain the knowledge of the subject, they have a better interaction, and they talk to each other, sharing the knowledge of your courses to each other. Number three, what is important is that when you involve your student engagement in your classroom, your student actually able to retain the knowledge of your course, not only long-term time, but also in their future courses too, right? So the conclusion is that any one of you who has involved in the teaching of the active learning, you should be able to design your curriculum in such a way that you actually, move or switch your teaching from passive to the active learning. Okay, right. So next thing, what I want to do is that, so why did I, adapted the active learning? The problem is that I was also teaching like you, just walk in the classroom, teaching and doing my job and going home. But then when they go in the third and fourth year, they were not remembering anything what I taught. And imagine nursing student taking care of the patient and not remembering where the liver is it, or what the function of the liver is, and what is the anatomy of your brain. And that was actually coming back, and somebody told me, hey Raj, I actually asked the questions to your student about the human body, and they were just like staring at the roof. And this is where I concerned. So I started digging into literature, and I was actually very concerned. Look at this data. So the nursing, the medical, and also allied health, such as the physiotherapy, occupational therapy student, they struggle to retain and apply the knowledge of the human body they learn in the first year. Look at the demographic. Around 92% medical students don't remember, or they lose around 50 to 80% of the anatomy and the physiology knowledge when they are in their final year. Those are medical student guys. And if they're actually going to look at the patient or care of the patient's going to die because of the misdiagnosis. Did you see where I am getting into? Number two, 14% of the final medical student, they think the anatomy knowledge is very crucial, but they actually don't remember at all. And when I looked at this one, there was nothing in the nursing student, and this is where I actually started my project, right? So this morning, I wanted to talk about the three important aspects. Number one, I'm gonna tell you what or how you can actually assess or evaluate the knowledge of your courses in the first year, and then how you can actually track your student to find out how much they remember, and then based on that one, you can develop the interventional strategy. Okay, number three. So now, in order for you to assess or evaluate the knowledge acquisition of your course in your first year, and then basically find out how much knowledge of your course your students are able to transfer, lose, retain, and apply in the subsequent years of nursing, you need to have the proper evaluating method, right? And so the research method I actually use is actually, so you have to design the proper method. The one of the most easily available method, and that is, basically can be found on the online, we actually call the Kahoot. Anyone here who are teaching uses this Kahoot? This is the online quizzing game. Okay, just create the account and you can make the number of the questions from your chapter and deliver to your student every day, guys. If you're teaching the one topic, make a Kahoot and give to the student. This is the most convenient and the easiest and the one of the easiest method of the immediate learning outcomes of your course or of your chapter, right? So now by using this method, what I did, we wanted to know how much knowledge of my anatomy and physiology my nursing student acquired in the first year. And then I want to know how much of that knowledge they are able to transfer in the second year, third year, and fourth year of their degree program. So by using the Kahoot, what I did, I actually developed around 9 to 11 multiple choice questions, right? And those questions were delivered to the first year student. That gave me the knowledge acquisition, right? And then same questions were given to the same student, but they were they were enrolled into the second year, third, and fourth year. So I keep the variable constant. So only thing changes the year, right? And so the data, and then I did that one for 11 organ system, the major organ system of the body, right? Now, I will come back to this one. The result of this study clearly shows that the overall knowledge acquisition of the anatomy student in the first year was around 83%. That actually significantly dropped to around 66.5% in the second year, 68% 2.2 in the third year, and 70.4 in the fourth year. Meaning that if they retain the 66% of the knowledge, they lost around 33.5% in the first year, the 31.8% in the third year, and the 29 to 30% in the fourth year, right? And so the good news is that they were able to retain around 70 to 75% of their first year anatomy knowledge throughout their nursing program, which is good news, right? Now, next thing I want to know whether their knowledge acquisition and the retention is organ specific. So what I did, in order to find out how their knowledge retention reflects, on the year basis, this is what we have. Now, what is interesting, if you look at here, there are organ system, for example, the head, neck, and lymphatic, and also, you are actually 88, the cranial nerves, they actually have better acquisition, right? But when they go in the second, third, and fourth year, they lose around 60% of that one. So that's been, they were not able to remember much of the knowledge they learned in the first year, on those organ systems. But if you look at here, some of those organ systems, such as the, what's it called, the gastrointestinal and the respiratory system, they have a lowest acquisition. they did not acquire much of the knowledge, but when they go in a second, third, and fourth year, they remember most of it because they only lost around 10 to 13%, right? And so by this table, what you actually can see that knowledge acquisition in the first year, and it's a transfer, loss, retention, and the application varies from one organ system to the other organ system. And this is another table you see. In certain organ system they have a better retention, and in other organ system they lost most of it. So we did not understand what was happening, why some of the students have a better understanding of their body in the first year and they don't remember anything when they go in a second, third, and fourth year. And that actually prompted me to look at some of those impacting factors, right? Now, you know, the teaching and the learning is the most complex process, guys. And any one of you are involved in the heavily teaching, you know those are some of the factors that can impact your teaching and learning of your classes, right? Now, when it comes to talk about the factors that impact your teaching and learning, there's a huge list of it. And it is out of my scope this morning to talk about all those factors. So what I did, everyone, I actually divided the factors that actually affect our teaching and learning into the student-related factors that affect the teaching and learning, and also the professor or the faculty-related factor, right? I am not going to go through them, but what I did, I actually personally investigated the impacting factor that affect the teaching and the learning of the human body and the physiology, right? And here is, now in the faculty of nursing where I am working, the teaching and the learning of the human anatomy and physiology is impacted by the number of the teaching hours. I do not know how many hours you get to teach your course, but in Canada, in Europe and North America, you only get 45 hours for one course, and your textbook is like 800 pages. So there's a huge pressure for us to complete your actually anatomy course within the 45 hours. Out of that 45 hours, we have final exam and the midterm exam. That leaves only 26 hours. Can you imagine, everyone, in a 26 hour, you have to complete the course and transfer the knowledge to a student effectively? Impossible, right? That's one factor. Second factor is also the class time. Did you know the simplest factor that can affect the teaching and the learning of your courses to a student is the time of your class, right? And look at here, the student who had a class at 11 o'clock performed better than the student who had a class at 8 o'clock. So that's been time of the class effect, and that is true because in North America, students take the 5 courses. And sometimes they stay late, they try to work on their assignment. Sometimes in a winter, there's minus 35 outside, your roads are piled up with the snow. Sometimes they miss the classes, and when they come classes, they are tired. And so that also affects their teaching and the learning. Number 3, also the semester, right? We have 4 semesters in North America: the fall, winter, spring, and the summer. Look at here. So the students who were enrolled in the fall semester perform much better compared to the students who were actually taking the classes into the winter. So the semester can also affect the teaching and the learning. Last but not least is also the program of the choice. I teach the psychiatric nursing student and the nursing student. Psychiatric nursing student takes the 4-year degree, and the psychiatric nursing students only 25 months, right? And so the choice of the program also affect your knowledge retention in your program of the study. Okay. Now, one thing is very clear from this one is that there is a problem. Students are not able to remember some of the knowledge of the courses they retain or acquire in the first year, and they struggle to transfer that knowledge to the final year or throughout their degree program. So in order to mitigate the knowledge gap between the first year and the subsequent years of the nursing, I have come up with some of the strategy that I want to share with you in the next few minutes, right? So there are 4 strategies I personally introduced that will help my student to be better student, with a higher academic performance as well as the student engagement, right? So I use the teaching technology. I'm going to talk about that one. I also use the anatomy images in their exam. Number 3, I also use or expose my student to the various online and in-class activity. And then lastly, I also use one of the most effective teaching strategy called the content reinforcement, forcing your student to learn over and over, right? So let's go to the first one. Here we go. Now, I am very fortunate. My department has purchased 1.2 crore rupees machine called the virtual human cadaver, right? So I actually use the most sophisticated and also the most modern and the cutting edge teaching technology called 3-dimensional virtual human cadaver called Anatomas, right? And so this is actually this is a perfect replacement of the human body. And what you have, and you can see me, all my students are surrounding with me, is a table 6 by 2, 4, and we have a virtual human body. So all the images, all the structures you see are taken from the actual human cadaver and transformed into the 3D images that you can increase, decrease, or rotate through the 360-degree end. Okay? You can also, here we go, you can also cut the section through the body and reveal the internal anatomy. I touch on the heart and heart comes out. Heart is actually pumping, and then I take a knife which is on the screen and I cut the heart halfway through. You can actually see internal anatomy. I do CT scan, MRI, ultrasound, and also the X-ray. Did you see? So this is the technology. Now, next thing we wanted to know, like whether using such a sophisticated technology really helps students to understand and improve their knowledge. Yes. So the result from this study clearly shows that the use of the anatomas actually significantly increase their class average in all 3 midterms and the final exam. This also has resulted into a significant increase in their GPA, right? So guys, the advantage of using the virtual human cadaver is that it actually provides the real life scenarios. It actually provides the actual images of your own body. Number 2, it also provides the social hub. If you go back again here, look at here. So by doing that one, you actually bring the student together. So when you bring together, they talk to each other. So when they talk to each other, they develop the 2 skills. One, the socials and the communication skill, which is very, very actually important too, right? So those are some of the most important advantage. And number 3, when I put any image in their exam, and because they actually practice on the human cadaver, the moment they see that image, they start recalling the knowledge, right? And so it also helps them to recall the knowledge in their exams, guys, okay? Second important strategy that I use is that because I teach the human anatomy, and as you know, human anatomy consists of the numerous images of the body. And the research actually has shown that using the body's images can improve the visualization, number 1. Number 2, it also reduces the exam stress and anxiety. The moment your student see the image, whether it's a botany, zoology, or any kind of the image in your exam, they actually say, oh my God, I know this figure. They start recalling the information, guys. The looking at the image also provide them the hint to an answer, right? So those who are teaching zoology, botany, or any course that has lots of images, don't be confused. Use lots of images in your exam. There's plenty of those, right? All right, so that's the advantage too. Now, let's look at the experiment, right? So, including, if you look at here, including more images in the anatomy exam resulted in a significant increase in their class average compared to the less images in the exam. And when you use the same number of the images in exam, there's no significant difference in their class average. So meaning that the inclusion of the body images improve the understanding, knowledge, and the academic performance of your student, right? Number two, look, in the exam, when I give the image and when I ask the question based on the image, look at the percent rating of the individual question based on the information presented in the image, the student able to basically recall the information and answer the question, which is actually compared to the much higher than the question we are asked without images, right? So this experiment tells you the inclusion of the images improve understanding, knowledge, and also help the student to recall the knowledge of your courses, reduce the anxiety and also stress related to exam. Okay, second last strategy that I use is that I expose my anatomy and the physiology student to the various online and class activity. So when my students are at home, I actually direct them to the online resources. I teach 700 muscles. It is impossible for me to, basically teach all those 700 muscles. I develop the assignment where students practice on those muscles when they are at home. Number two, also I provide lots of practice questions based on what I teach to them. When they are in front of me in my class, I engage them in the classroom. I actually pull out them together, divide in a group, and give them what you actually call the matching question. Sometimes I also divide them together and give them talk. Hey guys, let's talk about the diabetes, right? And so the moment I give the topic diabetes, they start talking to each other. They look at the symptoms, they look at the causes, and that actually again bring them together, and they interact with each other, develop the communication skill, and also develop the social skills, guys. So important, right? Number three, and also every chapter I teach, I actually assess their knowledge by doing the Kahoot quizzes, just I talk about, right? Number two, I also do a small test for every chapter. And number three, I also divide the class into the in-class discussion and the group discussion, right? Now, let's look at this one. The results from this activity, as you can see here, clearly shows that exposure of the anatomy and the physiology student to the various online and in-class activity significantly resulted into the increased class average, okay, in all three quizzes and the final exam compared to the student those were taught by just the passive didactic teaching method, guys. Okay, this is also result into the significant improvement of their actually GPA. The advantage of using those activities are improve the academic performance. Number two, promote the active learning, gain the communication and the social skill, and also develop the critical thing. And above all, the purpose of they are able to retain the knowledge of that particular chapter for a very long time. And that should be the ultimate aim of your teaching, guys, if you are teaching at the undergraduate institution. Okay. Last but not least, the last strategy I introduce in my classes to my students is called the content reinforcement. That's been repeating the knowledge of your course over and over. Every chapter I do, I actually keep on testing their knowledge for up to the 8 weeks. So example here, the cardiovascular. So repeated knowledge testing of the cardiovascular and the lymphatic system over 8-week period time. You can actually see they started with a 68 or close to 68, and look at that, they are around 75 to 80% at the end of the 8 weeks, right? So forcing your student to go back to your chapter when you announce those actually in-class quizzes, Kahoot, they actually force them to go back to their chapter and keep reading over and over, which is good news because they become independent thinker. If you are a professor who actually believe in the active learning, so your syllabus or your actually curriculum should include the blended approach, active learning, multimodal, and also the strategy that engage your student in the classroom, develop the active learning, make them critical thinker, as well as help them to retain the knowledge of your courses long-term time, right? So So that's all my actually topic today. But there are some of the students. So right now I have a collaboration with the University of Malta, which is a European country, where I'm actually going for the sabbatical next year. I also have my co-investigator. Those are my research assistants who actually help me in the summer when I'm traveling and doing my research. And then when I'm in a semester, I have an undergrad. So I not only develop the critical thinking, but I involve my own student in my learning process, guys, okay? So with this one, thank you so much for your time and your attention, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
So good morning, everyone. How did you like a very heavy session of medicine for a change in this very beautiful conference, where we gather from all parts of India and abroad. And it is beautiful multidisciplinary, which I love the concept. And yes, you may go off the theme, but you retain the creativity of presentation in international conferences. So my takeaway from here is, I'll be a little biased here because he's also my friend. And he's a brilliant teacher. Have you ever noticed what he showed just now is passion, nothing else. Unless you have passion in your life for anything you do, you can never succeed. And that is also his strength. I really envy his students because they are very lucky students to have a teacher like him. That is an example of a very good teacher. And we happen to have been in the health sciences, he's in Canada and I'm in Malaysia, and we crisscross. The whole idea is to gain knowledge. And do you know one of the best things he said today? This is basically a medical science class, though he teaches nurses. See, 800 pages in 26 hours is impossible. I'm a student of anatomy, and I'm going to tell you something. Honestly speaking, his best line was the last line, communication skills. Have you noticed me being a busybody here for the last 3 days? It's basically nothing. I'm communicating and communicating and communicating. And basically, who gains? I gain, honestly. So when you start talking to everyone, whether you like the person or not, believe me, you become him, the best teacher in the world. So, sir, may I have a round of applause for such a great guy.
Thank you. And I will be more than happy to share my presentation, anyone who is interested. And anyone who wanted to introduce the active learning in your teaching, contact me. Don't hesitate. I don't charge. Yeah, just email would be nice. Okay? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Question or explain?
Any questions?
You remind me the biological domain of the skill development. Because the last year also have a good project. Now this year have a more elaborate, more extensive presentation. Thank you very much. Now we have education how to increase the skill in India. In this connection, I have a suggestion. India have a Indo-Canadian research center under the Ministry of Embassy of Canada. IDR, it is called IDR. Why not create the Indo-Canadian center in Alwar, and create
Definitely, Professor Raj, we look forward for the collaborations, and I'm sure, and trust me, we look forward to sign an MOU with you next time.
Whole India, private sector is there, government job is where the hospital management, doctor नहीं कर सकता, doctor का काम दूसरा, लेकिन hospital का जो management है, water management है, electricity management है, air conditioning management है, energy conservation है, environment है, physiological है, how to control it? There is a need of a post-grad hospital management in the colony. Another is a BSc
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, ये आपकी सारी बातें हमने सुनी और कोशिश करी कुछ इम्प्लीमेंट कर सके. So from the bottom of my heart I would like to thank the chairperson and the keynote speaker for such a lovely energetic session. And yes, Dr. Raj, at the end of the day we all are teachers. We all are teachers, we should not forget that, and I'm sure we all try to do our best. So now, with a lot of gratitude and respect, I would like to call upon our next keynote speaker. Our next keynote speaker is Dr. Prem Adhish Lekhi, who is a doctor from Perak, Malaysia, and the chairperson of the session is Dr. Nagendra Singh, Principal, Trinity College of Engineering and Technology, Karimnagar, Telangana, India. आप दोनों का बहुत बहुत स्वागत, आप लोगों का अभिनंदन, and I would request the keynote speaker to start with the session.
So this is a rare coincidence when the chairperson gets to be the next speaker. And incidentally, we happen to be in health sciences, so you please bear with me another 20 minutes of very heavy duty session. So normally, wherever I go, I do this because I am born as an Indian. And when I come to India, because I love all of you, so Namaste, India. So when this email came that we are doing something offline, definitely the secretary services of the office, they will do all this. So I want to be grateful to these people, the organizers, Professor Hukum Singh, Dr. Upender, Madam Mamta, for a wonderful job. And I just met this very great person, you see Dr. Chugani, right? And who happened to take this picture. So I thought he has so many talents here. And then it all started that I already have done something like this before coming here in Malaysia, so I'll be keeping a secret till the end. Normally, this is not a presentation, this is not even my work, this is my life. This is how I start. Because I'm going to introduce myself to you today through this presentation. Now, a very beautiful thing happened. If you notice, I'm carrying a lot of pen drives. So by incident, a wrong pen drive in my last conference went to a right person, and it changed my life forever. Now, what is the story? There was this global forum for sustainable rural development, and the Americans have came to this Malaysia, and I was given 8 minutes, just like now you are giving me 20 minutes, and definitely I'll be crossing it. So I'm giving you a forewarning here. So what happened, we started as usual, then I said, sorry sir, this is not for you. Now this guy said, I want to see it. Now look at the beauty of it. So an American sitting in Malaysia saw Alwar for the first time in his life. And then they fell in love, and now what happens next will give you the shock of your life. Okay, then I have to introduce myself a bit, which I find, not honestly speaking, very important. The abstract you will read in the souvenir. This is my story. I'll go fast because I have 100 slides. And what actually I've come here for is because, okay, if I'm a medical doctor, so I did my work in hospital, in clinics, in medical centers. In fact, I closed shopped. Now, I had two choices in my life, to go to academia or NGOs. Now, NGO is a word kind of, I will say, underrated. But they are the only people in the world who actually does meaningful work, believe me. So I joined Doctors of the World in 1999. They won the Nobel Prize for Peace. And in fact, one of my friends was nominated to go to Sweden to collect it. Now, the beautiful part of it is when you join such organizations, you don't need passports. So you have white passports, they call it. You have diplomat immunity, which means you can go anywhere you like. I came to Alwar, I can even carry 40 kilos. That is one thing. So being a medical doctor, now what do we know about it? Allopathy. Wonderful, isn't it? It's the best thing in the world. But allopathy is maybe a century old. And now we talk about Hippocrates' oath, which many non-medical definitely may not even know that it exists. In 100 meters, we can open only one clinic. And I can assure you, the American was standing and we had an argument. He says, but when I come to India, I see 10 doctors in 100 meters. Because this country produces the youngest doctors in the world and the most doctors in the world. And also the place where the most of the doctors migrate, well, for obvious reasons, economic reasons is one of them. So are we not losing the best brains in the world when we need doctors here? Isn't that? Now, coming to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is the theme of this conference. Now, I am very, and I said very heavily involved with the goal number 3. Now, this is called what? Health and well-being for all. They have not even written here, by 2030. And now it is 2023. We only have 7 years, and let me tell you, we are not going to achieve it. And that's what Americans like, because they said, at least there's someone who's speaking the truth. Imagine the COVID-19, because I'm in the doctor's COVID-19 task force. Now, what is that? The Wuhan is still a mystery. I was talking to my friends this morning in the breakfast table also, and yes, we can go either side, pros and cons, dilemma, we can argue, as we said, till the cows come back, but we will not get the correct answer. Of course, it's camouflaged by China and all that, but Americans are also to be blamed. And then next one, if you remember, Bill Gates said, we don't need the Third World War. A virus is enough to wipe all of us from the face of the earth. Believe me, and he's right. Okay, we will go straight to the job now. Okay, this is my work. So I am from the Prime Minister's office where we do disaster management, and what happens there is we are trained to go and face the storms. So where am I now? There's something called recovery and rehabilitation phase in the super typhoons that take place in Philippines. Well, when you Google it, and then you will find this country is full of storms, cyclones. They are very minor things. Typhoon is heavy duty, believe me. And they just have it there. Now, it's very easy to read the newspaper this morning and say, oh my goodness, well, there's a disaster, there's a tsunami, there's an earthquake. Someone has to do the dirty work. Someone has to leave the comfort zone and go and face the storm. So that's me. I choose to do it, and I choose to do with great love and happiness, because I go to places where people can't pay me, and I don't expect them to give me anything, because I did not become a doctor to get money, to become rich, or even to become famous. So I always tell, when I go to classes, I teach classes in Laos. Some even don't even know where is Laos. And over there, I ask the students, do you know the meaning of doctor? I did a class for medical students, and they just looked at my face, oh, we never even thought of that. I said, you want to become a doctor? Do you know the meaning of doctor? The doctor is not that you wear a white coat with stethoscope and make money. Doctor means to teach. And doctor means to teach not to come to me. That was the gist of the whole story, that 100 years ago, when there were no doctors, there were no hospitals, there were no high-tech technology that was in this world, I think people were much healthier, you know. The Americans like this because they said, what you're saying is true, because we have become a mafia. So when I speak, I will make a lot of enemies. And that's what the people who were the elite group, the intellectuals, they said, finally someone has come up with some guts and come up on the stage and said, oh yes, someone is talking. Because if we do not stop this, the poor man, the poor woman can never see a doctor in their life. A small girl comes to me in Philippines and said, are you expensive? Honestly, there was a U-turn in my life. I said, so this is how they see us. I said, no. She said, why did you come here? I said, I came to help you. Why do you want to help me? I could not answer this, a child. And I said, well, I have to do some serious thinking. I only have one life. I'm going to go one day off. So better I take care of this profession that God has given me. So it's up to me to make my decisions. You do not have to follow the world. Now I will come to India. I come to Andhra Pradesh a lot, and now started come here. This is Philippines. I even went to Pakistan, and then Laos and all that. So in Malaysia, now we go to climate change. We have floods. from Delhi to here also there were floods. Half of my taxi was full. So which means, well, things are getting worse day by day all over the world. Servers here? Okay. There were wildfires from Canada going to America just before we came, you know it. What is happening is all climate change. I don't have to name it. Death Valley is 50 degrees centigrade if you go to California. The Death Valley, you don't have to go to California, you just come to India. Already 50 degrees centigrade, it has crossed. So, and you may escape it. We are old, we are going to die, we will be off, the next generation is going to curse us. We are leaving what? What legacy are we leaving behind? Just imagine. Because, okay, I have a good time, this is not my problem. We all have limited time on earth. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, mind it. We are not here forever. COVID-19 taught everyone your money and your power, your connections are not going to help you. When the virus attacks, it attacks. So when are we going to wake up? I may sound unpalatable, I know that, but that's who I am. So here is a man with so much, which you will know later, who I am. I went 5,000 years back to find the root cause of medicine. I became a medical historian. And I wanted to know, since I'm coming to India, I said, what did India give the greatest gift? Ayurveda. And you have very beautiful doctors now coming to even Malaysia, all these kind of doctors. And the Ministry of Health have even opened a new department. Because I'm close to the Indian High Commissioner in Kuala Lumpur, so the Indian High Commissioner asked me, please get people from India who are in allied health sciences, who are in complementary medicines, because we need to spread this to the world. Something, okay, I understand, here the East wants to go to the West, for obvious reasons. But the West wants to come to the East. And you are all great people, you don't even know your strength, you are sitting on a gold mine, and it is just there to tap it. Unfortunately, we are looking at the wrong side. And we know it. It works, allopathy works. Emergency, you need allopathy. But there are side effects. There are a lot of other issues. Well, we have a doctor here from AIMS, the best institute in this country. He will talk at length about this subject, and he can argue with me, and yes, and he will be definitely right. But what about 100 years ago? We were not having so much development, right? But we didn't have so many issues either. Have you ever thought of that? Pardon me? Okay, now the vision problem. It is small here, it is small there. I have to go there now. All right, we all start with yoga, right? 21st June. I was instrumental in Malaysia, supported by the Indian High Commission of Kuala Lumpur, who said, let's have a yoga day. Imagine. So I said, good. So I'm active. I teach Hindi in Malaysia. Look, I'm proud Indian. And I tell people, कोई शर्म नहीं है कि तुम हिंदी बोल रहे हो. इंग्लिश बोलने से तुम superior नहीं हो जाओगे. या white या 3-piece suit डालकर तुम अंग्रेज नहीं बन जाओगे. I said, be honest to yourself for God's sake. तुम्हारा soul जो है, वो तुमको धोखा नहीं दे सकता. सारी दुनिया तुमको धोखा दे सकती है. आपने अंदर पूछो. Just imagine, so I was advocating this Ayurveda and yoga. Of course, there are other countries doing other work like TCM, because I'm involved in hospitals, so the TCM is traditional Chinese medicine, okay? And then this acupuncture, we all know about that. Reiki, Western, German wali nahi hai yahan par, na? So she would talk about Reiki. Homeopathy, we scoff at in India, come on, don't kid yourself. Is mainstream medicine in Germany. I was there in Germany and they said, look, it is mainstream medicine in Germany, and we scoff at it because we want allopathy. Sir, with due respect to you, we have to learn to respect things which we don't understand, but they work. It's like that. So I became an activist, I became a fighter, and people start listening. They say, yes, you have a point here. So, sir, pardon me. Oh, well, I can't read it now because it's kind of glaring. And, okay, you know, all these massages and there are millions of therapies and herbal medicine and aromatherapy and things like that, sir. To answer your question, you ask, sir. Yeah? Okay. Or we go further, like there are many people in the US who are basically, there's a paradigm shift now from modern medicine, allopathy, to all these therapies, as we call it. Yes, arguable, debatable, I understand all these questions. And for 2 days, I've been a very patient listener to all the stories. And I was thinking, there are a few people who came up with a lot of guts here and said, can we go back? Because I have a last slide which will really shock you, because there's a message from a very great person who is telling you, actually, if you want to go forward, please take 2 steps back. Nurses are doing it in very heavy, and he's a teacher of nurses. And then doctors, MDs, I'm talking about US, they are already taking up naturopathy. Again, something very interesting that's going on there. Since I took up CAT, we do CAT scan, right? So it was a catchy subject, but basically I'm talking about complementary and alternative therapies for a change. When we introduce these therapies, so, okay, allopathy medicine is the gold standard, remember. You cannot use Ayurveda and homeopathy in trauma, accidents, okay? You need the doctors in emergency medicine. So that is aggressive treatment which we needed in emergency. Allopathy, okay, it's biomedicine, 100 years old. It works. It will continue. Nobody is replacing it, okay, mind you. Now, how does this comes into play? There's something called acute or chronic illness. Acute, well, you understand me, it just happened. So I go to the emergency, they save me if I have to be saved, right? But chronic illnesses, they are actually being treated by complementary and alternative therapies. Now the question is, allopathy will not respect you and it will not accept you for obvious reasons. So it is, we are walking on a very thin line. We understand that. But then God has given you a brain and you have a choice to make in life, and you know what is right and what is wrong, and you take your decisions. Because I was in US and they said, okay, listen, you are right because secretly people go to, we call it, other doctors, other sciences, because I want a second opinion, I want a third opinion. Basically, I want to be well, and I don't care who treats me. Whoever treats me is my God. So I don't care if the doctor is big or small, because he or she treated me. It's this way. Now I'll be sending you all over the world, and then you get a good knowledge of what, which is very quick and it's going to be very short. Holism, something quite interesting, theory and philosophy that focuses on connections and interactions between parts of the whole. There's something called a whole, and then whole of your body, and then the parts. So using a holistic perspective, there is something called holistic lifestyle, wellness medicine. Things are changing a lot now. The continual interaction and change means that the body is not the sum of its parts, but that it is a unified dynamic. All right. So holistic philosophy is a philosophy which underlines many CAT. A change in any part of the organism will be reflected in other parts. So they have their own nursing practice, and they have their own, as we call it, therapies, which basically complement them. So this comes under the integrative care.